the Backup is brought to you by the best evil person we know. Every single character in succession. Oh, God, they're just all pricks. Evil Spy Boy. Get your exclamation mark Spy Boys out in the chat because thanks to his generous Patreon support, Evil Spy Boy is bringing you the backup and he's hoping you bring the generosity to Food Bank Australia. Food Bank is Australia's largest food relief organisation, providing 88 million meals a year to more than 2,600 charities around the country, accounting for 79% of all food received by charities from food rescue organisations. Speaking of rescue, I don't know what's going on right now with Pete, but he's doing it. He's coming in, and he's like, only my hands can fix this situation.
I was trying to do it and not bring attention to it, and then you just brought attention to it. So now the podcast.
Although to be fair,
because I muted
you were on camera.
But for the podcast.
Oh, for the podcast.
This is a podcast.
Yes, yeah, right. I forgot we were a podcast. Food Bank provides regular breakfast to more than 132,000 students at schools around the country. On top of this, more than 200,000 children seek food relief from to their charities every single month. Evil Spy Boy wants you to help them out. Donate to foodbank.org.au. Nightbot has the link right there. And also head to tasteofmultifish.com for more information about Evil Spy Boy's various proclivities. And I'll just leave it there. All right. Let's jump into the news with the first story, which is the oldest story we've got here because it happened last Monday night, Tuesday morning, our time, I suppose. And that's the big Xbox 20th anniversary showcase news dump thing where a lot of things were announced. And the biggest one, of course, is that Halo Infinite is out now. We've spoke about Halo on the show last week, but Steph, when we did the news last week, we were talking about whether or not, if they dropped it, is this a good idea? Would this be fun? Did you like this? The idea of the surprise Halo Infinite drop? Do you want to see more of this kind of like huge games just going?
I just feel like it's an easy win for someone to be like, surprise, we give you the game now and it's free. So I think it's great. I think it's cool, and I think it's a great way to kind of focus attention on multiplayer now so that by the time the campaign releases, everyone's like, I love the multiplayer, I've been playing it and I'm enjoying it, but now I can 100% focus on the meat of the story and everything that has to offer. So I think it's a smart thing to do, but I also think it's a nice thing to do from like a us to you perspective.
Yeah. Steph, your mic is totally fucked again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not that sound is back. Your volume just dropped, and now your noise gate is cutting you out.
It's because you touched it, because you came in here and you touched it. You flicked the little switch. Is
there enormous still the fingers? That might have been it.
No, it sounds great. It sounds great now.
No, but I'm on Discord. Keep talking, Steph. And now
hello?
you're too loud. Now you're too loud. That's fine.
Okay.
I can fix that.
Sithcat's right. Pete broke it, and now I'm really loud. It's because you turned me up so much because you thought it was something else. If you just told me, I would have fixed it, and none of this would have happened.
Halo Infinite.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I think it's a clever thing to do because I think everybody will have enough time to kind of devote to playing and enjoying the multiplayer, so that by the time the story releases, everyone can then focus on that, having kind of not played and gotten over the multiplayer, but they've seen it enough to be able to divert their attention to something else for a while. I think it's really clever, and I also think that from a community perspective, it's never not a beloved thing when a developer is like, hey, we're going to drop this very suddenly, and you can play it for free right now. Congratulations, go have fun. So yeah, I think it's great. I'd love to see more games do that kind of thing.
I like your thing about the idea that it's like a free win, and I agree. And I think that most games should actually say that they're releasing a month later than they're actually planning on it. So then it is just like everyone could do it. Everyone could just go, okay, when is the game going to be finished? Add a month to that, say that, and then come out a month early. And then everyone wrecks the party for everyone else. I do think, Pete, I was thinking about this because I've been playing just a ton of Halo over the last week. And to Steph's point about how people will sort of have gotten their feet wet, I guess, in the multiplayer, there's going to be a lot of people who haven't played Halo before playing this because it is part of Xbox Game Pass as well. I'm one of those people who was never really a big Halo person, but now I'm a massive Halo multiplayer person. And I think I'm now going to play the campaign on is it Heroic? Is that the next one up?
Yep.
Legendary? Yep. So
Heroic,
they're balancing. They normally balance for Heroic, but they're balancing for normal in this campaign because there's going to be so many new people coming that normal is the one that they're saying we intend you to play on this, and everything else is going to be harder not the game that is balanced around. But I think I'll be playing on a higher level than I normally would because after playing so much multiplayer, it's going to be like, these AI chumps, I'm wiping the floor with them on me.
Yeah, Halo's campaigns have been like, since 343 took over, have been easier for sure. I think they're just trying to be more, like back in the day, Legendary was broken. How difficult it was, particularly in Halo 2. There were parts of that were just like, this is not fun because it's just the AI is so accurate and that kind of thing. But there's a jackal sequence where you just get sniped every time you poke your head around a tree. But I think this campaign, I mean, I haven't looked at any of the campaign news. Obviously, people have had previews of the first 4 levels of the campaign, and some information is coming out about that. And there's some mainly positive sentiment is the impression that I get, but I just don't want to know anything about it. I just want to go in cold and have it overwhelm me.
Yeah,
I'm just a bit sad that everything I've read says that the co-op campaign won't be available till like
until March,
May or something next year. And I like playing these games in co-op. I feel like it's not often that you get to play shooter campaigns in co-op. So I was looking forward to that experience because I'm not the biggest Halo guy, you know. I'm not like mad for the lore and the universe and the story and all that kind of stuff. But you know, playing it with someone else makes it more fun. So I'm kind of bummed about that.
Well, I mean, it's still going to be there in 6 months.
I know, but then will people still want to play it in 6 months' time? They will have played the multiplayer. Yeah. They will have played the single player. Are they going to want to play it again in co-op?
If it's anything like Halos of old, yes. People will play through the campaign multiple times. I certainly will.
Miss Molly Makes says she loves the campaigns too. So Miss Molly Makes, if everyone else is over Halo by the time the co-op launches, it's you and me, baby.
You and Molly.
And Steph would ideally like to experience it fresh with you. So please hold off for 6 months as well. They also announced, as part of this, the Halo TV show that's been rumored, got announced in 2013 at E3. And we got a glimpse of something. I assume it's Master Chief's back. Yeah. And some hands, and then we have a helmet. And that's the extent of the teaser. But it is the most information we've got about this show in years. And given that we are on we've had Witcher.
Yep.
We've had Arcane. Am I missing a really good video game adaptation of the last 24 months? I probably am, but we're on a good run at the moment. Pete, are you excited for this one?
I am, for the first time ever hearing about it. I've never been particularly excited. The last time I was excited about there being a live action Halo thing was when it was like Peter Jackson was involved with Del Toro, and there was like some test footage of that was like Halo 3 days. So we
saw the warthog at Weta Workshop. It was very exciting.
Yeah, it was fucking awesome. But it was awesome. There's been an era of plenty of bad game to film adaptation or game to screen adaptation, and the last few years, I think it's since Game of Thrones, for me, that I've thought that if the right production company gets behind this, it could be a success. I don't know that Halo necessarily has a broad enough appeal. I don't think it has as broad appeal as Game of Thrones with its kind of political drama. Halo is very nerdy, like even more so than something like The Expanse, which is still about humanity in the future. At its core, it's a science fiction story, but it's about like humans in the future, and there's some alien goo. Whereas this is about military wahoo in spacesuits.
That's a good point.
It's so nerdy, like it's teen boy nerdy. And I think it appeals a little broader than just that, but that's kind of where it started, and it's maybe not grown beyond that. There's definitely some intriguing lore in Halo now. I think they've done a good job of building out, taking what Bungie started. 343 have built on that a lot. But I don't know that it's an every person show for sure.
I think for me that if this show is to... Oh, sorry.
No, go.
I think for me, if this show is to be successful, it needs to do something more to develop the character of Master Chief, because we always kind of joke that Master Chief is just like this person who is like devoid of personality, and that doesn't matter because you're playing him in a video game and he's like
that's a bad take though, because the games do a good job. The games do it's not COD, he's not COD thin. Ever since Halo 2, they've done a pretty good job of developing Master Chief as a character that is more than just action man.
Yeah, okay. I just I feel like
I think it's an easy assumption to make looking at the dude in the green suit who doesn't say much, but they actually have done a very good job, in my opinion, of making the Master Chief a deeper character than action hero guy from very early on, and it's just it's easy to look at it on a surface value and go like, yeah, he's not much, but he like the relationship between him and Cortana has been an important part of the story the whole time, and it's like that's a friendship and a love that you don't really see you don't get from Doom Guy, right?
Yeah, sure. But I think in order for it to survive as a TV show, though, I think that needs to be kind of expanded upon further. I understand that we get to see an aspect of him as a person through his relationship with Cortana and all that kind of stuff. But like, I don't think that there is enough there for a TV show to be appealing to people unless they do some work to kind of build on that further. And I'm curious to know whether this is going to be a situation like The Mandalorian, where he keeps his helmet on the whole time and he has to act through his helmet, and you have to have a lot of long shots of him standing there with his helmet on where he makes a subtle movement and you're kind of getting a lot of information based on that subtle head movement because you can't see his face. Or if it's going to be, different in that we do see his face more often and we get to know more of him as a human person as opposed to just like a Spartan. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying for me, that was what would make it successful, because anytime you adapt something, whether it's from a book to a movie or a game to a movie or a movie to something else, you need to be bringing something that you're not getting from its original experience, which is always going to be arguably the best version of it, right? So I think for this kind of universe, I understand there's a lot of wonderful lore to it, but that's very difficult to explore in any kind of series or storytelling medium. I think they need to kind of humanize it a little bit and make it more appealing.
There are heaps of books where Master Chief is like out of act and not in combat. There are plenty of books where there are plenty of
at a cafe having a latte.
Books. Pretty much. There is definitely heaps of that. There's definitely heaps of like what is the military industrial complex of this era, and it's like, let's take humans and augment them, and it's like there's a lot of like There's some interesting drama that could be built around the whole idea of the Spartan program.
Miss Molly says that they have to create a love triangle to spice it up with Master Chief, Cortana, and a random alien. I feel like you're thinking of Mass Effect.
Yeah. But yes, but also
I'm here for it.
Do it.
In the books, because I figured that the books are probably what they're going to hew closer to tone wise.
Yeah.
The games are very like self-serious when it comes to the story, but the games are also really silly because of the physics and some of the gameplay. Like there's a lot of ridiculousness in it because of I think mainly down to the ragdoll system. Do you think that with the books, do they have that? I guess what I'm saying is, like, when you play the games, there's like a lot of dumb, silly fun that happens in moment-to-moment gameplay, but the story is very, very serious. Do the books capture any of that sort of more light-hearted stuff, or is the books just 100% hardcore?
Some do and some don't. I would say for the most part, no, because it's all story. It's serious story. But there's definitely... I mean, it's hard to capture teabagging in a novel, but what they do with the Master Chief sometimes is like, there's a joke that like there's a Halo meme of like Master Chief and then versus Master Chief in the books. Or like they show gameplay of something fucking ludicrous happening of the physics being broken. And it's like, this is like books Master Chief, where he flies like 3 kilometers through the air after exploding a warthog, and like, you know, he does a barrel roll in his suit and catches a banshee and all that bullshit. So like, yes, there's like the book Master Chief is fucking ludicrous at times, and I think it's depending on the author that they give the character to. But yeah, that stuff is definitely in it. The idea of him being like pulling off like you know,
insane
since, like,
shit.
Yeah, since the first Halo, it was like, you know, there were other Spartans, but the thing that this Spartan has that no other Spartan has was just luck, an insane amount of luck, and that's what the Master Chief character is built around. The idea of like he's very skilled, but he just pulls off some dumb fucking shit that no one can explain.
He rolls a 20 on luck and approach every time. Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what they do, because I think that we're really entering that run of, you know, we're also going to be seeing The Last of Us as a show and stuff. Like, we're entering that space where you expect these things to be great and not shit. So I think there's a lot of expectation, but you know, I'm excited to be surprised. What I'm also excited about is this Microsoft documentary that they announced. It's called Power On. It is launching on the 13th of December across a variety of platforms, including, I mean, this is an American thing, so Roku, IMDb TV, Redbox, YouTube, and more. So I imagine YouTube is what we'll be watching on. It began 3 years ago. And it's a how many parts is it? Is it a 3-part? Is it a 1-part? I can't quite remember. But it's basically a look at Xbox, the company, over its history. And I think there will be lots of really fascinating insights. I should say up front, it's also made by Xbox. So I expect that when they have their fuck-ups, like, let's go Red Ring of Death, it will be seen as, we took this really seriously, but look how well we solved this problem, as opposed to what it actually was is just like, I can't believe this is still a problem 5 years on. But yeah, I love these sort of like insights into how massive companies start and evolve, and particularly like all the problems that are part of that company that are constantly happening, and it makes you realize massive companies are just like small companies. They're always dealing with shit. But Pete, you would be excited for this as well. You like this kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I think this is going to be awesome. I do think you're right in it being a in-house documentary. We're not going to get a lot of the juice that I would love to get from this era. Like, I feel like there have been some company heads at Microsoft over the years that have not looked as favorably upon Xbox, and we're not going to hear about the times when Xbox almost got all its funding pulled, because I think as a whole, this piece is going to be like, you know, Microsoft is fully behind the Xbox brand the whole time, because they can't let shareholders know that at one point fucking Balmer was like, nah. So
yeah, and because even if they're like, it's not like that anymore, it's like, but it could happen again.
Yeah, it shows an instability that they can't afford to show. I think this is the perfect time to make it, because Xbox has, you know, Xbox were really strong in the US. They've never been the biggest console, but they were strong in the US, particularly with the OG Xbox and the 360, and then the Xbox One debacle. You know, it, like
all of Matrix era, I think, potentially going to be hand waved away.
Was just like, you know, awful consumer facing ideas that were received at least as with at least as much animosity as they deserved. But they were in the deepest pit they've ever been in since the launch of the brand Xbox. And now they're skyrocketing on the Spencer train, and you know, it's the best time to make this where they're looking up, and they still have the underdog status, but so it doesn't feel like gloating.
Totally,
you know, if they were dominating the market and they release this, it's like, yeah, fuck off.
I think
the fact that there is some drama is the exciting part.
I think it's cool that we get to see, because I feel like I've watched the series on Bill Gates, and I've seen a lot of sort of docu-series stuff on Microsoft particularly, and its rival with Apple and that kind of story. But I actually don't know much about the origins of Xbox at all. And my first Xbox was a 360, so that whole kind of early era is really unknown to me. So I think it'll be really cool to watch. And I do hope they take some risks with it in terms of exploring some of the stuff that, you know, wasn't so favorable for them to look back on, because I feel like that's part of what sets you up to be like, look what they overcame and here they are now.
Yeah.
But obviously everyone has to sign off on that and make sure the company doesn't look too bad. So I agree in saying that we'll probably look at any of those negative moments with very rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah.
I'm the same as you. I was like, back when console wars actually meant something. I was always a PlayStation guy, and so my first Xbox was also a 360. And I remember my friend Higgy got an Xbox, and I went over to his house one day. I'm like, that is the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, that controller sucks. The X is lame. Like, all of it is horrible. And I was so like happy with my decision to stay with PlayStation. I'm looking forward to seeing what this is like, and we don't need to wait too long because I would also be really surprised if this is not on Game Pass as some sort of video that you could just watch. They didn't announce but it seems like the best way to get this in front of people would be to have it on the thing that they've already got.
They said a lot of platforms, whatever that means.
That means that it'll debut in Fortnite or something.
Yeah, totally. They also added, as a quick thing, that they're adding another 76 games to backwards compatibility. There's tons of games, obviously. Well, 76 to be exact. It's the Max Payne series, Fear, Time Splitters 2, Future Perfect, Dead or Alive Ultimate, Nier, Star Wars Jedi Knight 2, Red Dead Revolver, 50 Cent Blood on the Sand, Steph. 50 Cent Blood on the Sand.
What's that?
Actually, so
that was the 50 Cent shooter.
That was the 50 Cent shooter. Can I tell you, it's not the worst shooter of all time. It's not. It is not, and that is really surprising that a game, like, I miss the days. There was a story going around a couple of weeks ago that Wu-Tang Clan are getting a video game, and I was like, God, when was the last time that kind of thing happened? And it was 50 Cent Blood on the Sand.
When was this released? I missed this entirely.
Is this 360?
Yeah, it was 360. It was
2009.
Yeah, 2009. Yeah.
Wow.
It is Uplay's 360. It was basically Uplay's 50 Cent. It was like 50 Cent meets COD meets Saints Row, I guess is how I would describe it. And really not good, but not awful. Surprisingly, the shooting was actually pretty decent. It was just everything about it else was ridiculous. But yeah, but they also said that these games, it's going to be the end of adding games to backwards compatibility. They're done with it. And they've added as many as they care to. I actually heard a really great interview with the lead on the game, on the backwards compatibility thing on Nextlander podcast, and he was talking about how they don't go back to the original devs when they do this stuff, so they figure it all out themselves. Yeah. So they go through each game and just kind of like work it out. And a lot of the time, this relates to that Rockstar stuff that we saw last week. Sometimes there are bugs in the game that have to stay. They have to replicate the bug in this version because the bug was the developers couldn't get the bug out of the game in the first place, so then they built systems around the bug, and one of them being like if you couldn't figure something out with like a frame rate lock or something, then you would tie physics systems to differing frame rates at different points of the game. And that's exactly like you were talking about, Pete, with the GTA exploding car thing, where you go, all these weird ways that games work in the background, and they need to replicate that for like each title they add to the thing. I thought it was really cool.
It's been like, I think that's something that got missed with this backwards compatibility run, was that the amount of work, like Microsoft assigned a team to doing this day in, day out. Like there was a team working on all this backwards compatibility coding for their emulation that they built into their hardware. So they had to build the emulator, and then they had to port the games across to their emulator, which is, it's not as simple as going like, they've been made available. And it's why I think we don't see as much of it happening on PlayStation, because they haven't put the resources into that, or don't have the resources to put into that, because it's a lot of work for the only gain that, I mean, the biggest gain that Microsoft get from this is a community boon, right? It's like everyone's like, oh, good on them for doing that, as opposed to it being like they're going to sell 1 million more consoles because you can play.
It's totally because of Sony going. It's totally because when Sony came out, like, no one wants to play old games. Yeah. That was, Xbox were like, that one line triggered a department in Xbox of just going, we're just going to do it because that's the play here. It's not, like you said, it's costing us money, but that's the play.
Yeah. And I think, Phil Spencer came out recently about preservation of old games as well, and trying to make emulation a more legal process. It's already legal in the States, and it's legal here, but it's obviously it's getting the code of the games is the dodgy part. Do you own a copy of it? So it's like, but yeah, like every play that Spencer has made has been a very consumer friendly play, with the massive added bonus of it being a massive publicity stunt every time as well, of going like, here's a lot of goodwill.
I cannot think of another CEO in the world who I think has done as good a job as Phil Spencer of being a consumer-facing human while also like
getting company
making
wins,
phenomenal business decisions every single time. I think that Phil Spencer will be looked back as being so monumental to the future success of Xbox, but also just as a model for what a CEO is. I think that he seems like I've met him a couple of times. We've interviewed him a couple of times. He's lovely in person from all accounts. Everyone thinks that as well.
He makes you feel like you are as important as, like, the next person who might be like way more important than you who speaks to him. He's so
totally
generous with his time.
And he shares so much. I think he's been at Microsoft before Xbox even was a thing. Like, he started there. I think he started there as an intern. So he's just been there basically his entire career. But I think that every decision has just been so rock solid and going from strength to strength. It's just, I mean, I have so much respect for him as a guy. And I think that, it's just really exciting seeing what he's doing with that company. The final thing that he announced in an interview afterwards, it wasn't part of this, is that Elder Scrolls 6 will be an Xbox and PC exclusive. I think no surprises there, but that confirmation did come out. Moving from one great CEO to one just absolute shit trash fire of a human being CEO. And that's... do I have to say allegedly? I don't think I do. That's my opinion. Activision CEO Bobby Kotick. The ongoing disaster over at Activision Blizzard, which started mainly with Blizzard. When this story broke a month and a half ago, maybe, it was mainly Blizzard with the sexual assault allegations, the toxic workplace allegations seemed to be mostly centered around there. And I think a lot of the time we were like... Activision seems like it would probably be there as well, but Kotick is going, no, it's mainly a Blizzard thing and we're going to deal with that. And now it's come out that it is an Activision-wide problem. And not only that, but Bobby Kotick has known about sexual misconduct allegations for years, toxic management allegations for years. He's not necessarily, well, I guess you could say covered things up, but at least... downplayed and moved people around, and he's also been accused of harassing female employees, being shit to other employees, and being awful to work for. I think there's no huge surprise here, but I do think that before it seemed like this was something that, as a CEO, he could probably weather the Blizzard stuff, because I think that Blizzard had always been, we are our own entity within Activision Blizzard. And so he could go, I'm going to try to make changes in that part of the company. But I think now it is a completely company-wide thing. He's involved in it. And it just seems to be a systematic, fundamental issue with Activision. I think that this is the time that Kotick will actually have to resign and step down. But Steph, you have not been on the show at all during any of these discussions. What was your reaction over the last week when the Wall Street Journal broke this news?
I feel like it's just the whole thing is such a mess, and I never know what the way forward is in this situation when you think about a company that is as big as that, and I think about all the people that are still working there and trying to like make games and put stuff out and still kind of be a part of changing the culture of what it's like there. Obviously, they're participating in an investigation that is happening, that is kind of pulling all of this stuff out, that's just like going from from bad to worse. But I don't know what the next step is for Activision Blizzard to kind of make themselves seem like a company in the public's eyes that is still worth supporting. Because it's, you know, they have so many huge games that people love, and there are still so many people there working on those games and, you know, want the work that they've done to be, you know, recognized. But how can you kind of, how do you come back from something like this? I feel like they have to kind of do a pretty like hardcore spring clean of everyone in upper management who, you know, was even kind of remotely close to this, because otherwise I don't see how, and it has to be legitimate. Like, I think a lot of the time when we see stuff like this happen, it's like, oh, someone will step down or they'll step back, or this person, you know, leaves, but they get a massive severance or something like that. And it's kind of like, it doesn't feel like it's a significant enough change for people to understand that what is happening is never going to happen again, and that new people are going to be forging a new way forward for the company. But yeah, I think it's really tough. I think when there was an outcry when some information came out about Supernova's organizer, you know, supporting some really awful causes and allowing kind of sort of racist stalls to be in the thing. They were like, Supernova is changing its management, and like this guy is kind of stepping back. And it was like, well, he still owns the company, he still profits from the company, and he's still making probably decisions behind the scenes. They just put a different person's name in that spot. But you saw that their sentiment was really positive. They're like, oh, I'm so glad that you responded to this. But it's like, they didn't really. They've kind of done it in a way that makes it look like they're doing something about it, but they haven't actually. I don't think Activision Blizzard is going to be able to get away with that. I think they need to be able to make a significant enough change to the people that are running the company so that, you know, gamers who love their games feel like they are supporting a company that will legitimately change and keep their employees safe moving forward.
Yeah, and you know, like this saga has been going on for quite a while now, and I felt like they've had the opportunity to do that at multiple steps along the way. But every week we hear new awful things that have come out of Activision Blizzard as a company. Kotick is obviously right at the top. It would be a massive step to actually just cut off the head. And I think a necessary step to save what is left of it, if it is still salvageable. Because I agree, Steph, every time something new happens, I'm like, at every point I've been like, they can still redeem the company by getting rid of, like, cutting out all the poison. But the poison is so deep in the company that, you know, and over the past few months as well, I've been justifying the idea of keeping that company alive for the sake of all the employees there.
I've got friends that work there, and I've had this conversation with them, and I'm like, what's the go here? Like, I understand that you're still like putting out PR stuff and you're still kind of trying to promote this game, and what and the answer is, I don't know. It's so hard because it, you know.
Yeah.
And then by the same token, it's just like there are so many other companies that are doing similar stuff that, like, you know, or have done similar stuff that we are sort of losing available companies to support with a clear conscience because everyone seems to have something like awful going on within their ranks. All I can hope is that the ongoing discussion around it and the people that are speaking out about it will shine enough of a spotlight on it that companies and the people that are running these companies start to realize that you can't just get away with it anymore, and that the culture will change.
Yeah, and I think that the problem is that the only people who can make this kind of change is the board and the shareholders. They tend to not care about this stuff unless it's affecting the stock price. The stock price has gone down, but it probably has not gone down. But what they're relying on at the moment is it'll bounce back. It probably will be much harder for it to bounce back with Kotick at the moment because employees at Activision are talking about much more widespread, like, walkout. Like, I would be really encouraging, and it's a hard thing, but like for everyone at that company who wants him gone, to just stop turning up to work. Because if it's one of those things where you go, if you can do it where like if COD misses their next like patch or content drop, that's when it's actually like, no, now it's affecting the money that you make and not just your stock price, and then your stock price will start to plummet. Like if you miss doing something like that on a scale where it's not 10 people do that and they can be fired, it's 1,000 people do this and you can't fire 1,000 people. And that has been,
you're talking
in
about
the past, that is the I am talking about a union, and Activision famously hire union busting law firms. But it is like, that is the only way that you can really show actually the power is in the hands of the employees, because as soon as they stop working, Bobby Kotick doesn't know how to fucking update COD. He probably doesn't even play COD. So therefore you've got nothing. The problem is that he is the guy that turned Activision around. Activision were a subpar low tier publisher until he stepped in, put the train on the right track financially, and ended up making everyone an absolute fucking fortune. And so he, in the eyes of all the people who actually have the power, he has done a great job. And replacing him is, at the moment, there's no path for a succession, because there's no one that he has as like his second that he has gone, soon I'm going to retire and I'm grooming you to take over. They don't have a succession plan, from all accounts that I've read, in place for who takes over that company if they get rid of him. And if they get rid of him, the stock price probably bounce back a little bit because of public perception. But then who is there actually? Because separating the idea, Activision have made phenomenal business decisions for the last 20 years. Like, they've made so many good business decisions. They've just made horrible management decisions. And the board need to continue with good business decisions. So I'm like, what are they going to do? They are put in this, as they should be, put in this incredibly difficult position where they should kick him out. And they have to kick him out. I fucking hope they kick him out. But I think that the only reason we haven't seen him gone yet is that they're going, what do we do once we boot him out for the company? And yeah, it's just fucked.
It's just so hard as well, though, because we're coming out of the pandemic where people have already been like, probably in situations where they haven't been able to come into work and they're really behind on stuff, and they maybe some people have been on furlough or whatever because everything was kind of out of action for a long time, or they weren't able to work on things in the way that they were able to. And for people who have kids and can't afford to not do anything, without a union structure, the idea of just not turning up to work would be so fucking terrifying. And you would have to find some way of communicating that to everybody, that we're gonna all do this for X amount of period of time so that we can kind of have our say. And without a union structure, that's so hard to do. So I feel like for the majority of employees there, they're just kind of hanging on because they're like, I can't afford to lose my job or not get paid for the next couple of weeks while I try to take a stand because my kid needs to eat or whatever. It's such a messy situation. And I feel like that when we talk about this kind of thing, and also like crunch and all that kind of stuff, that's why developers really do need unions. And it's like even Naughty Dog has sort of tried to steer the conversation away from unions, and I really respect them as a developer, but there's been a conversation around crunch with them as well. It's frustrating that this is like the games industry is still so far behind in sort of creating the right support for their teams.
Yeah, it's just
There's no other medium. I mean, I guess television is the closest probably to having like a rabid and aggressive fan base. That's who they're feeding. For the developers are terrified of their audience, like no other medium.
Yeah,
they're going to sell.
And even tech companies like they go. Twitter or something.
Nero 7.1 has been delayed by 6 months and no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
But it's also like, totally. I feel like jobs, like the games industry, like a career in the games industry is volatile as it is. Like there are so many weird fluxes that happen in terms of the money that these companies are making that, I've just in the sort of decade that I've been in this industry, lived through several instances of like mass layoffs and companies like, falling apart and dissolving and huge arms of them being shut down. So it's like, it's scary enough to be a game developer when things are good, that when things are bad, I can't even imagine. Yeah. I mean, I hope there's a good resolution to it somehow.
And then there's the other problem that you go, if the stock price keeps going down, if they start losing money, if people stop supporting their games, then that affects the developers who work there. And it's so shit that they are also when I say the best thing that they could do is walk out, I do think it is the best thing they could do. It's also the hardest thing for them to do, and it shouldn't be on them to have to fix the problems upstairs. Totally. It shouldn't be the PR managers and the developers and the artists who have done nothing wrong to go, okay, we actually need to now fix this problem that this guy who got paid $200 million last year is not fixing. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I do think that he probably doesn't survive this, because we've even started seeing Jim Ryan came out, the CEO of PlayStation came out with a statement saying that it's a real problem. Phil Spencer had an internal memo in Xbox saying that he's reconsidering or evaluating the relationship with Xbox. And there's no way that you release that internal memo without knowing that's going to get leaked. So that is that is a totally public statement. And who knows what that stuff means, but yeah, I mean, I over the weekend I was really hoping. I'm so pro Phil that what I wanted him to do is just come out and go, we're going to just turn off Call of Duty on our console until you remove Kotick and fix this problem. Because if you do that, he's gone that afternoon. He's just gone. He's just gone. There's no way he survives. So that would be the thing. And I think even hardcore COD fanboys who don't give a shit about any of this could still respect the guts of a move like that to just go, no, I'm just flicking the switch on that until you fix this problem. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll try booting up COD this afternoon on the Xbox. And if it's not working, I'll be like, Phil watches the back podcast. Yeah. Anyway, that's the last we're going to hear of this. Hopefully the next news story though is that that fucker's gone. Moving on to a happier story, and that is that alleged fucker, sorry. That Riot have released footage of their new fighter, Project L. And so that you guys aren't as confused as Pete was this morning, new fighter means new fighting video game, not new champion in League of Legends called Project L. Because as Pete pointed out, Project L is a dumb name for a champion.
The more I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, that's actually not bad.
Project L. Yeah, I mean, it's no... Yeah, it's no stupider than
Gary. There's got to be a League of Legends hero called Gary, right?
No, I mean they have. Actually, Jennifer. I was actually thinking Dota ones, because a lot of the League characters are just normal names, like Caitlyn or something. Whereas Dota is you're just named after the thing that
you're holding. Axe.
Yeah, the thing you're holding. Oh my god, that's just okay. What do we got of this character? I don't know. What is he holding? Yeah. Okay. So our new character, iPhone. But Project L is the new fighting game. This got announced in their big League showcase in 2019. It's been rumored since about 2016. It is a tag team 2D fighting game. It looks very beautiful. None of us are massive fighting game nerds. This 6-minute gameplay deep dive was definitely talking to fighting game aficionados. They did not hold back on just the language that the community uses in ways of describing attacks and fighting styles. Was totally the signal of this is not just some easily accessible fighting game. I think they wanted to be as accessible as possible, but we're not dumbing anything down here. This is we're really going for the throat with this. But I think the biggest thing about this is just the unrelenting pace at which Riot have been releasing new content over the past 2 years. And Pete, I can't think of another company that has been around for as long as Riot with just one product and then have suddenly released 6 things in the space of 2 years. It's quite astonishing. It's like
reverse Valve.
They are a reverse Valve. 100%. It's like I don't know. It's like someone just had to remind them that they could make other things, and then suddenly they went, "Oh my god, yes, of course, quick, we got to do that now." But yeah,
I think they spent so long. When did League of Legends come out? It must have been like 09, maybe 10. Definitely was before Dota 2 started rolling out. 9, yeah, okay. And so they spent like a good decade establishing themselves as like the biggest MOBA. They beat Valve out of the gate to Dota. They beat Dota out of the gate because Dota was not Valve's, obviously, at the time. They built something good. They built a solid foundation. They've effectively rested on their laurels, but they just put all of their focus into that one product that just kept growing and growing and growing and becoming more successful and becoming such a moneymaker for them that I can imagine I don't know if there was a change in management that has triggered this, but they would be sitting on a shit ton of money, right? And it would be so easy to go, this thing is working. Let's make sure this thing keeps working because it's keeping this whole business alive. This is the business. And not realizing that they've got a bunch of creatives in their space that could be diversifying. I mean, as far as diversifying assets go, it's still, you're making video games, but diversifying the products that they're delivering is the right move for sure. And they have such a huge development team, and they have such a huge amount of money, cash to invest in development of new ideas that, I'm sure that half of these are born of game jams that have been happening internally, that all these creative people have all this pent up creative energy that they want to be putting into things that aren't just balancing a MOBA. And I'm sure Valve could be doing the exact same thing with this team that they have on Dota, but basically their entire Dota team is devoted to making art for hats for the next compendium. That's all they're coding over there. So yeah, I think it's awesome that they're pumping out so much stuff. And I don't know what triggered it. Maybe it was a change in management that it was like, let's rethink how this business is working because we could be spending a shitload more money and paying less tax.
Totally. Steph, did you? Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like I haven't thought about this kind of fighting genre in such a long time. There haven't been at least that I've been aware of, huge amounts of games that have been released in this genre. I kind of had forgot about it for a long time. The Mortal Kombat movie is the only time I've thought about a fighter in such a long time.
The hardcore ones have continued to come out, but it's been this Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl and something we're going to talk about later on in the news that have been the things announced and dropped in the last sort of couple of months.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm sure there'll be an audience for it. And it's the art style looks really cool, especially I guess off the back of the success of Arcane and everything. Everyone's really kind of into exploring the broader kind of League of Legends universe.
I think it's just so interesting. Riot, so they released League in 2009, and then for 10 years they don't put out anything else. And then 2019 they do Teamfight Tactics. Last year they do Legends of Runeterra, Valorant, and League of Legends Wild Rift. And then they've got Project L, which is this. They've got Project F, which is a hack and slash action adventure Elder Scrolls style thing that they've sort of spoken about. And they're also working on an MMO. And it's just astonishing. When I worked, because I didn't work for Riot, I contracted to Riot, but I was there 2017 to 2019, I think. And I heard rumors then of this stuff. So it's been cooking in the tank for at least 5 years. This game has been in development in some way for 5 years. And it just seems like they've gone iterate, and they don't really want to start talking about this stuff until most of it is ready. But I think that it's been interesting going Riot and Blizzard, even though they often didn't make the same kind of thing. Blizzard didn't start making an MMO, MOBA until Heroes of the Storm. But they were kind of comparable companies in some way. And it's just been interesting over the last 12 months seeing how Riot...
Not least of which the lawsuits held against them.
Totally. Yeah, I was going to say who have faced a lot of their own stuff as well. But Riot seems to be on the rise in terms of game development, and Blizzard seems to be like the other trajectory. So
totally. It's a good comparison, because Blizzard were always known for being that company that would kill a project before it even saw like public eye, because they were like, it's not good enough. It cannot have the Blizzard logo on it. And, you know, Riot, I think, have probably been doing a bit of that. Tencent bought them in 2011, so they've had them for a decade. You know, they bought like 93% of the company, so it's like Tencent are Riot, and Tencent obviously do a lot of work with mobile and stuff. So I think in buying Riot, they've been trying to build more premium PC, other platform kind of games, for as big a market they can get their hands on. So I think we're seeing the results of that. Of going, like, they've probably spent, you know, they spent 5 years on this, sure, but they would have spent another 5 years going like, no, on projects that had a couple of years of development into them. So
totally, and also
cream
all
has
the
risen
games
to the top.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. All the games are good. Like, they're all good. They might not be your game that you like, but League of Legends is a great MOBA. Valorant is a great tactical shooter. Is a great Counter-Strike. Legend of Runeterra is a fantastic card game. So yeah, there's no reason to think that this will be anything other than excellent, because their track record is that. Then you add in Arcane, which is just is great and is getting phenomenal reviews. So yeah, they're doing good work at the moment. Less good work. Streamlabs. This is just a quick one. I had no idea about this. I always thought Streamlabs OBS was the sort of more consumer friendly version of OBS, and that is exactly what Streamlabs wanted you to think, and why they added the word OBS to the end of it, because last week a sort of story broke around just a mess with Streamlabs in general. Basically, they've been accused of plagiarism from other companies. And so there was a company, Lightstream, that allow for console streaming without having any external capture cards. Lightstream had their website with all their features. And then they found on Streamlabs OBS website, they had basically astonishingly copy-pasted everything from Lightstream and just changed the names and the colors, and it was basically exactly the same web page and set of features that they've got there. Streamlabs came out and said, we made a mistake. Text on the landing page was placeholder that went into production by error. This is our fault. We removed the text as soon as we found out. Our intended version is now live. Lightstream team is great, and we've reached out directly to apologize to them. Lightstream weren't having any of it, and off the back of that, the developers of OBS came out and said that when Streamlabs OBS announced, or just before they announced it, they reached out to OBS and said, hey, do you mind if we use the word OBS in our title? OBS team answered that and said, we would prefer you didn't, thank you. And Streamlabs just ignored that, did it anyway. And so therefore everyone, I feel like, because the reaction from every single streamer that I saw was like, hang on a second, Streamlabs OBS is not part of OBS. And Steph, you're in the same bucket.
Totally. I used OBS originally, and I used Streamlabs for my alerts and stuff like that. And then as soon as Streamlabs OBS was launched, I was like, oh, what a cool partnership. They're joining forces to make a better product. And I used Streamlabs OBS for a few months, but I found it actually was a huge resource hog on my CPU. So I ended up having to get rid of it and go back to OG OBS. And I kind of just never really thought anything of it. I thought I was using an older version of the product because it just happened to work better for me. And it turns out that it was just something that they co-opted and tried to make their own. They tried to backpedal and be like, oh, we included OBS because it's built on OBS's open source software. It's yeah, but you stole their brand as well, and their logo and everything. So you can't really just kind of claim that. And they're like, oh, we're taking steps to remove it from our name. We're going to do as much as we can. But I feel like things spread so quickly and allegiances are formed fast in the gaming community. So I
don't think anyone aligned with Streamlabs on this one, though.
No, well, that's what I mean, though. It's it was a very swift kind of, condemning of Streamlabs as a result of this. I still have my alerts through Streamlabs, I think. So I don't know. I think maybe Stream Elements is another option.
Stream Elements is something you can plug into OBS. And then there was something, I think Lightstream has some of the same things as well. So, because I think that's what everyone who went to Streamlabs OBS did it for, that additional alert, new follower style stuff. And you can plug most of that into OBS.
Sorry.
No, go.
I was just going to say, I'm really surprised that OBS didn't come out with a statement when Streamlabs OBS launched to kind of distance themselves from it and be like, hey, this is not our product and we're not associated with them. Because, this seems to be just news to everyone. But I wonder if they were either trying to just deal with it quietly behind the scenes, or if they, I don't know. Well, why wouldn't they have done that, do you think?
I think it's just such a young market. And, this Streamlabs project, the OBS project was like an open source tool that was being built. They would have had a bunch of people building off their code and couldn't have predicted that Streamlabs OBS would be one of the few to succeed in the market next to them. And I think it succeeded because, obviously they built the overlay tool, which you can plug into normal OBS as well. So Streamlabs kind of built a name out of being all the alerts and stuff. And I think, that was all obviously very useful. But they became successful because they put OBS and leveraged the search optimization, right? The SEO was heaps better for them because they had OBS in their name. Yeah. So, you definitely can't say that Streamlabs didn't benefit from pretending to be OBS.
For sure.
Oh, no, 100%. Yeah.
Confused Echidna says the issue with many Aussie streamers stopping to using Streamlabs is that there isn't anything else that takes credit card donations instead of PayPal here in Australia. For those who don't like PayPal, it's even more limiting now. So that's something that I didn't consider. But how do these companies make money? Because they're both free programs. It's all free software. How is this affecting them?
I think you can donate to OBS, the developers, but they're doing it because they believe in open software. That's the whole thing. It's it's an open platform, and it's a philosophical thing of we're making this because we believe that software should be free and open. So some of them just don't make money, but instead provide something to people. And so they go, well, we feel damaged by this because we're trying to do something good, and they're doing the exact thing that OBS is built on, the idea of sharing, and Streamlabs are coming and taking and not giving. So I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
OBS has
a Patreon.
Yeah, and Streamlabs has a bunch of features behind a paywall, like a creator tier that you can pay them for. Apparently.
And then the other thing that sort of came out around this was that apparently Streamlabs is a really shit place to work as well. That there were lots of they're just really bad managers. Lots of people talking about how they got fired from there for just not agreeing with management. And the big one that I saw was someone who went to TwitchCon and was talking to one of their managers at Streamlabs about how the booth was not wheelchair accessible, and then they got fired because they were being stubborn about the fact that it should be wheelchair accessible. And it's firing someone because they're speaking up about trying to make something more accessible is just kind of the worst thing, the second worst thing you could do in today's news, in the list of today's news stories. So I think that, this one hit them pretty hard, so we'll see how this turns out. But they keep apologizing, and the more that they apologize, the more people come out and go, oh, yeah, I've got a story about how they were shit to work with. And very quickly, just wrapping up the last two things, Rockstar have going to be relisting the classic versions of the GTA games that they put out in the Definitive Edition because they were anything but definitive. They have apologized for the various technical and visual issues that players have been encountering with sorry. I'm laughing because we've got a video of just a compilation of bugs from the game, and it is delightful. They are bringing back the classic version of GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas to the Rockstar Game Store, and everyone who bought those games on their store will be given these titles for free. You just need to redeem it, and I think that redemption period ends sometime in May next year. So this is the first step in a make good of trying to fix the public perception around this game. And then in terms of announcements, we got some confirmation, Steph. You say there's no fighting games anymore, and now there's nothing but fighting games. All-Star Brawl, we got Project L, and Warner Brother announced and confirmed Multiverses, the Super Smash Brothers fighter developed by Player First Games that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, bringing together Warner Brothers IP, including Scooby-Doo characters, Adventure Time characters, Batman, and even Arya Stark.
That's so weird.
So it's just this great. Gandalf was the weirdest one in the rumor, but the Game of Thrones stuff is actually, I think, the weirdest part of all of this. So it's going to be basically Super Smash Brothers, but the big difference besides the roster that they really hammered home in this announcement thing is that it will also feature voice acting,
authenticity,
from tons of the original, particularly in the animation space, like Kevin Conroy is doing Batman and stuff. Yeah. And that was, for All-Star Brawl, seemed to be the weirdest part of going, there's no voices in this, so there's no character to these characters. So, yeah.
It's sitting next to the Nickelodeon one. The Nickelodeon one looks like a more cohesive idea because all the Nickelodeon characters look like they could come from the same world. Or it's all like a weird enough palette that it somehow just meshes together. Whereas this one is like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it sounds amazing. I love listening to all all the Conroy of it all. It's awesome.
It's such a
and then please, Steph, please.
It's such a weird thing to include characters like based on, things like Game of Thrones next to like Adventure Time characters and stuff like that. But I can't decide if I care about it. Like this part of me wants to protect, the high fantasy properties from being co-opted into weird cartoon fighters. And the other part of me is like, does it really matter?
Yeah, certainly doesn't.
We can all decide what's canon for ourselves.
Steph 15 years ago would have cared about it, but you don't have the energy for this. You don't got the time to make this one of your mental loads that you have to deal with today. Totally. And then the last thing we'll touch on in terms of a delay is that Saints Row is getting delayed. A game that got announced a couple of months ago and was supposed to be coming out in February 2020. This is the reboot of the Saints Row series. It's being delayed, and it's a pretty hefty delay. It's been delayed to the 23rd of August next year. So it's basically 6 months. They said that the delay was due to the fact that they underestimated the impact the pandemic would have on Saints Row's development. And due to the size and scope of the new Saints Row, it's become apparent to create the best game world possible, we need to give our team longer to perfect their craft. And so we've settled upon a generous yet essential amount of time to realize our ambitions. And I do think that 6 months is definitely we've got some real things that we need to hammer out. Hopefully they also added on a month or two so that people don't need to be working their ass. Sorry.
So you can really
to surprise drop it. Yeah. But also to avoid crunch. So they need to now add on another month so that they can surprise drop it early. But also, I think that beyond the fact that your game may not be completely ready in February and you don't want 100% crunch over Christmas to try to get there, and you need to add on the extra month to surprise everyone early, I think it's just a good move getting the hell out of February. Because February we're seeing Dying Light 2, Horizon Forbidden West, Destiny 2, The Witch Queen, Sifu, and Elden Ring. Who wants to release a game in February?
Yeah, it's especially a big open world game like this where you want to spend a lot of time in it. You people will always be like, I'm going to put the big open world daunting one on the back burner because I need a significant amount of time to play that. And then that's the one that ends up getting forgotten because then people are just like, it's too hard. It's too hard to go there.
Because if you look at that list, Horizon Forbidden West, you're probably going to play because it's so anticipated. It's going to be such a big game. You want to be part of that conversation. Destiny
hours.
2, you don't want to leave that too long because you want to be leveling up and staying current with drops and stuff.
100 hours.
100 hours. Sifu is the one where you're like, I can squeeze that in. It's probably only 3 to 6 hours. I could get that done.
3 hours.
Elden Ring is, so therefore Elden Ring is like the big open world game that you could put on the back burner, but you don't want to because it's Elden Ring and you don't want to get bored. So you're actually playing that first. Pete, what's my tally now?
100 hours. 100 hours.
So then you're making
at 253 hours.
Yeah, so then you're making your choice between Dying Light 2 and Saints Row. Dying Light 2 is at least like anticipated in terms of like, yeah, the first one was a success. We want to see what's happening here. Saints Row is a bit like we're rebooting this, so it could go either way. So what were we 250 hours, Pete?
253. Dying Light would add another 25. Saints Row probably another 35. And I'm talking about playing them like with intent to like enjoy the full experience.
Yeah, we're talking about playing these games properly.
Hardcore.
Now, so what was that hour total?
253.
253.
If you want Dying Light,
you hit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. And so that includes Dying Light.
No, that doesn't include Dying Light. If you include Dying Light, you're at 278.
278. Okay, cool. So that's before you hit.
That's before you hit Saints Row.
278. Roughly, on average, there's 730 hours in a month. So then you minus 278 hours. That leaves you with 452 hours. Let's say 29 days. So that leaves you've now got 15 hours a day to complete everything else in your life. And if you minus sleeping, so let's say that you're only sleeping 6 hours a night because you've got all these video games to play, you've now only got 9 hours in which to do everything. You minus the work day, which is 8 hours, you've got one and a half hours left to shop, spend time with your family. So it just doesn't work, Steph. It just doesn't work. The maths isn't there.
We
I'm glad though that you that you went through with the equation so people could really see it in facts and figures.
Yeah, and I was also, people have to work 7 days a week in order to just get their work done in the system. So so by moving, they're not only protecting the developers from crunch, they're protecting everyone on the planet from crunch as well. All right, that is the end of the news. That is everything you need to know that's happened this week in video games.